Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel. I was having one of my periodical sort outs of my makeup drawers last night, and it struck me I might show you some of my most bashed about old eye palettes and eyeshadows. I am quite good about editing my makeup collection. I don't have a room full of old makeup like some YouTubers, although I readily admit it's quite hard sometimes to let things go, and I do have several drawers of products that are barely used, mostly Chanel, some Guerlain, I guess, that I am literally keeping because I like to look at them. I don't actually wear them, but I do try to keep that to a minimum. I do try to get rid of stuff when I'm not wearing it. I quite often get rid of stuff quite soon after I buy it. If I've bought a palette and thought I liked it but find I'm not wearing it really within the first 3 months of having it, then I get rid of it, because very often I can give it away or sell it or give it to charity or a friend or whatever, and there's still good use in it. There are some palettes that I just can't bring myself to get rid of, even though they're not really collector's items. And partly it's because they are good products and they last. So I thought I would pick a few of them out. As I say, I don't have drawers and drawers and drawers of them. And just talk a little bit about them and why I think I've kept them. And the first palette I want to talk about, I believe, is possibly the oldest eye palette in my collection, but I can't tell you how old it is, or exactly when I got it. I could look up when Stila started marketing, but that wouldn't exactly help me because I don't know whenabouts I bought it, but it was in the days when I didn't have a huge amount of makeup. This is one of their kind of cardboard palettes that I think were kind of a brilliant marketing tool, where you bought the refills. They're just magnetic, but it's all a bit makeshift. And I picked out these 4 shades, and you can see one of them is actually down to pan, something very, very rare for me. It's the famous Kitten, and it's still, in wonderful shape. Do they make makeup like this? This has to be 10 years old. I think nearer 15 years old, but I don't honestly know. And that one's quite well used. A lovely creamy gold, a nice sludgy taupe. Look how well they are swatching. Respect to Stila. That matte is a bit dry. Seen better days, and ironically it's the one I've least used. Get my words out there. So I'm keeping, not just for sentimental reasons, because now I definitely think it's the oldest palette in my collection, but because actually it's still usable and I must get it out and use it a bit more. I used to have a lot of Stila in the day, not so much now. Another 2 products from a range which is now defunct, and I'm guessing these are from the late 90s. I bought them in New York, and it was a standalone store called 5S, which was part of the Shiseido range in the United States. And I remember going in there, it was in Soho, and having a makeover, and it was in the days I still really didn't know very much about makeup, and they recommended these cream shadows. They were multi-products supposedly for lips, eyes and face. I've only ever used on the eyes, and I bought, I think, 4 cream products, and this is the last one now. Still going strong, still usable. There it goes on. Made a fantastic base, and this was how the sales assistant who made up my face used it. So this was before the days of primer, certainly so far as I was concerned, and it kind of started a trend for me that I've continued. Although I have tried various primers for the eyes over the years, I always come back to using a good cream shadow as the base for my powder shadow, because that's what that sales assistant did with these fantastic creams in a tube that just last forever. I mean, I really have used them a lot. This is the only one that's left now. And I had two single shadows. This lavender, which I wouldn't have dreamt of buying, but she used as a kind of lightening in the corner of my eye. I don't use it a lot now. Again, you can see I've gone down to pan, and a taupe, which I definitely used up very quickly. 5S, I think, went to the wall fairly swiftly, and it isn't in New York or anywhere else now, but they were fantastic products. It's a real shame. Another range that kind of went to the wall, not as a overall, is Victoria's Secret. I don't know whether they do any makeup now. The last time I was in New York, which is 2 years ago, certainly the flagships no longer had. They did a wonderful range of individual shadows, I thought, that were gorgeously pretty. Here's a kind of purple with the most beautiful iridescent. Just look at that. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. Like foil, but not foil. This isn't terribly old, you know, maybe 6 years, I guess. And I bring them out for parties. They're a bit awkward to use because they're singles and I kind of forget about them. That one's not wearing too well, but they also have gone to the wall. Another range that I used to use a lot and don't now is Smashbox. Are they Canadian? You can get them all over the place. I had a lot of big Smashbox palettes. I had a multi kind of palette when I was first getting into makeup, which had like about 40 eyeshadows and brow products and blushes and everything, and I really loved it. This was a special for breast cancer awareness, and I just really loved, and again, they're still super soft, still usable, that pretty pink. It's prettier on the hand, to be honest, than on the eye, and these are all a bit frosty to make one look, but I think it's now the only Smashbox product I've got left in my collection, although for years and years I had a lot of them. MAC was a huge favourite when I started getting more interested in makeup, and I totally got into making the large palettes. Here's my kind of main browns palette. I hardly ever touch it now, and you can see there's a lot of use left in. They're not aging brilliantly, some of them are a bit dry, but still very usable. I really ought to take this out a bit more. My problem with these kind of make-your-own MACs are that I get caught up in individual shadows, and they're really, really pretty, but they don't necessarily work together very well. I haven't, got enough mattes and enough darks in here. And then I go for kind of very in-your-face colours that I never use. I mean, what was I thinking when I bought that yellow, for example? May well have been on sale. I've got another MAC palette somewhere. I must pull them out and use them a bit more. I tend to use a bit more their kind of quads because they're just very convenient for doing a look. This one was one of my favourites for a long time. I don't know how old it is. It's the Karen Reutfield collaboration. Some of their collaborations are a lot better than others. She's famous for her super smoky eyes, but I found this a very wearable combination. Still pull it out occasionally. What I don't do is use, is this one that's got, one of their kind of shading products, which is completely dried now, and you can see I never used that. It was a bit too orangey for me. That's the problem with their quads, really. And one of their other very successful ones, this is only a few years old, was Pedro Lorenzo. Just a really nice everyday selection, which I still travel with quite a bit. I also have a lot of individual Chanel eyeshadows. I don't know if they even make them in this format anymore. I haven't looked on the counter for a long time. I'm guessing this one is a good few years old. You can see there it's well dented into, although I haven't quite hit pan. Still swatching very well. This must be 10 years old, I think. Need to get these out and use them a bit more. But again, it's less convenient because they're kind of individual. I've got a drawer full of these. I don't have many individual MACs, but I thought I'd show you this one because it's a really useful colour. It's called Grain. It's a satin, and it just is a brilliant over the lid, simple with mascara colour, which I've had this one for a number of years, but I had one before and actually used up, which is very unusual for me. And then finally, I couldn't not show you this palette. When did I start collecting Tom Ford eye palettes? 2012, so it's not that long ago. But this was my first, and it remains my favourite. I've shown it you many, many times before. You can't get it now except on the used eBay market, and then not so often. It's the famous Enchanted. If you can't get this one, Nude Dip is a good alternative, but this is much cooler, and it's a wet and dry palette. And it remains my favourite palette of all time. When I'm going away on holiday, I nearly always take this with me because I can do just such a beautiful evening eye. This, I'm dirty on all the fingers. This peach, it is starting to dry a little bit, but it's still just dazzlingly usable. And honestly, however inept you are with makeup, you can make your eyes look prettier with this palette from Tom Ford. And I should say, because you can't get it anymore, Nude Dip does nearly as well, and you can get that. So I don't think I will, even if this dries up, ever let this go willingly from my collection, because it just has such good memories, and I love it so much, even though I've now got 3 drawers full of Tom Ford eye quads. So there we go, a few very old, very dusty, very battered palettes that I just haven't let go of, though they mostly hang around the back of drawers to show off my newer ones. And I'd be interested to know if you have any real favourites that you've had for years and aren't able to let go of. Until next time, bye for now.